everyone, and welcome back to r/Fatlogic. Before we move on, I just want to say a couple of things. Oh my god, at the time of this recording, I'm up to 120 subscribers. I've gotten more comments than I've ever thought I would. There's a ton of engagement with my videos, and thank you all so much. This is just crazy. Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for engaging. Thank you so much for all of your comments. It's just amazing, and I really appreciate it. At the end of this video, I will, of course, have my regular, weight loss update, but also I have a lot of things to talk about in regards to the channel, so if you're interested in participating in that, please stay till the end of the video. So let's get on with it. Don't eat so much. I already barely eat as it is, and I'm still morbidly obese? You're a medical miracle if you barely eat. Where's your body getting the excess calories from? Genuinely curious. I ate around 1,000 calories or under for years and was 250 pounds. Only after I started eating again, I lost weight. This is the one. You clearly know nothing about fat people, eating disorders, or how the body actually works. Okay. Oh, gosh. Stuff to unpack here. Barely eating is a common thing I hear these morbidly obese people say. I guarantee you are eating... It's like they are convinced that their own personal perception of themselves trumps natural laws of nature. So there is something called the conservation of mass, and you can't just create new mass out of nothing. How humans get bigger is because of the overconsumption. Well, typically it's fatty foods, but in general, just food in general. We're just going to just say food in general. And that is how they get bigger, because they are consuming more than they need, and that contributes to their mass. You can't just create fat out of thin air. That's not how that works. I highly doubt you ate around 1,000 calories or under, given that the body burns calories just from laying down and doing nothing. There's calories that have to be burned just for maintenance and upkeep of general bodily functions. And for most people, I think that ranges right around the 1,400 to 1,500 calorie mark. And that's if you're laying down doing nothing. Now, this can vary a fair amount based on how much you weigh, how active you are is a big one. Your age is also a contributing factor. But with the exception of, I think it's Prader-Willi syndrome, most people are going to burn more than 1,000 calories. And there's no way that you could maintain a weight of 250 pounds eating only 1,000 calories or less for years, as you put it. If you say you only started losing weight after you started eating again, was it that you started eating again, or was it that you were recording what you were eating? Maybe you were making better choices? Just curious. Were you making any better choices with your food choices? Like, were you eating more fruits and vegetables, which are calorically less dense, and therefore you ate more, and therefore you felt full more often? Like, that's a big thing for people. Some people want a lot of volume in their food, and that's totally okay. All you have to do is make smart choices about where you get those calories, so that way you feel like you're eating a lot. It kind of cracks me up that they end with, you clearly know nothing about fat people, eating disorders, or how the body actually works. It seems like you don't either, honey. You don't really know how any of this works. You'd like to think you do, but you don't. Not to continue to bitch about fat phobia in creative circles, but knowing how to recognize and call out that shit is a good first step. But folks really need to get over their fear of depicting characters with any body fat whatsoever. I'm so sick of six-packs and sharp jawlines. I'm so sick of huge tits and asses and skinny waists. Start giving characters pudgy faces and stomachs and limbs, or I'm going to start biting people. It's normal. It's literally normal and average and needs to be depicted. Collab rambles, fat phobia, trigger warning. Okay. Okay. There's a couple of different things I would like to touch on here. I personally don't have any problem with people depicting fat characters. That's your choice. Generally, though, I mean, the fat characters, with very few exceptions, most art styles can't really depict fat people as pretty. And I don't mean to be like a bitch. I'm not trying to be a bitch, but most of like the fat art that I've seen isn't very pretty to look at. And maybe that isn't because it's fat characters being depicted. Maybe if that's just, I don't care for the art styles. I'm not sure, because it seems like those that depict fat characters will only depict fat characters. And so I don't really get to see a big range to see if I like the art style that much. But even that aside, I mean, if me not liking art styles that have a lot of fat characters in them, that's very much personal, and that's just my preference in art style and aesthetics and whatever. I find it absolutely baffling, though, that this person feels fucking entitled to an artist's labor, that artist is required to depict them in however they want to be depicted, and have characters drawn that look pudgy and have big stomachs and big limbs. That's a lot of work, especially if it's not like a labor of love. If the person drawing doesn't have characters in mind that are fatter, then you are asking for just basically free labor so that way you can see what you want to see. It takes skill, it takes time, and it takes work in order to have a nice drawing. And you simply demanding it is fucking ridiculous. If you want more characters depicted, then spend the time to learn to fucking draw. And invest your own time into this shit. No one owes you representation. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth, especially when it comes to Fatlogic. Especially these people that are just drawing on Instagram, and I don't know if DeviantArt is still a thing, but independent artists that are just drawing for fun don't owe you shit. They don't owe you shit, and if they want to draw six-packs and sharp jawlines and big tits and asses with skinny waists, that's their prerogative. Personally, I'm not great at drawing. I really would like to get better, theoretically, in a time when I have more free time to actually build this skill. But I tend to like very slender characters with very smooth, long lines, because I'm very fond of the silhouette of ballet, and I like the grace that goes along with those images. And I just really like soft, graceful looking characters. That's my personal preference. We don't see that a whole lot with chubby characters because you can't get those same long, graceful lines with fat characters. You just can't. But to think that to feel as though you are entitled to people drawing characters that you deem appropriate and that you deem like it's a moral requirement for them to depict fat characters, or at least characters that you approve of, is so fucking narcissistic and entitled. It's crazy. And the fact that you're like, I'm gonna start biting people, that's a really interesting choice of words for me, because biting, I mean, it's a more barbaric act than like punching or slapping someone, because you are physically, I mean, biting is something that we tend to equate with animals. And so to say that you are this sort of person that would devolve into biting people, I mean, that's just, it's a little crazy, and I think you need some help. Found out that the doc that I saw about my back pain in college straight up used scare tactics to try to get me to have weight loss surgery. She told me being fat had done irreparable damage to my bones. and that she could see them degenerating, and wrote me a whole recommendation for weight loss surgery. But guess what, y'all? I finally, after 8 years, saw a new doctor, and after a set of x-rays, she noted that there were no such changes. My bones are fine, and she thinks it's likely that I have a severe case of arthritis. This could have been caught years ago. I'm so fucking mad. Okay, unless it's rheumatoid arthritis, arthritis tends to be a result of damage to the bones. Tends to be specifically joints. Sometimes this can be done through accidents. I have a family member that has arthritis in their neck after whiplash from a car accident. So it isn't necessarily always due to weight, but chances are that your arthritis is in your load-bearing joints, and that is due to your weight, honey. That is due to your weight. And I think it's interesting that you say bones, but even with arthritis, when we say arthritis, we're talking about joints. Like, in general, your joints are the ones that deteriorate more so than your bones. It's been 8 years and you haven't made any changes. Chances are any damage to your bones would more likely be damage to your joints, which means damage to the cartilage in your joints. It means damage to some other mechanisms within your joints. There's this fluid that's in your joints that is extremely slippery, so your joints can move easily. And I know this because it can get inflamed. Slippery fluid in your joints, I think it can be borne away. I'm not a doctor, so please don't necessarily quote me on any of this. This is more what I learned due to a workplace injury, mostly. But no, your bones aren't fine if you have a severe case of arthritis. Arthritis is most likely in your joints, not your bones specifically. I mean, joints are bones. You guys kind of know what I mean, though. It's not that your bones are wearing away. It's that the weight on your joints is causing deterioration in the ability for your joints to move, and that could be that slippery fluid is getting trapped because of the compression of your joints because of your weight. Or it could be that the cartilage in your joints is getting worn down because of your weight. That's the thing, is that it was caught fucking years ago. You have no right to get fucking mad, because it was caught years ago, and she tried to warn you, and she tried to get you weight loss to help and prevent this level of arthritis from happening. It's been 8 fucking years, and you're like, this could have been caught years ago. Where were you in these 8 years? I don't know, there's just so much, oh man, it's so hard because it feels like there's so much to unpack in these comments, and I just don't have, I feel like my brain gets torn in a couple of different directions because there's so much stupidity packed in one comment. Well, in this case, 2 comments, but still. But I think I've made my point. Your arthritis was most likely caused by your severe obesity, and the weight loss surgery was to prevent that arthritis from happening, but because you thought you knew better, you're like, my bones are fine. Clearly they're not. They're not fine. I really do not think people understand how pervasive medical neglect of fat people is. I was speaking to my mother about how when I was in college, I went to a doctor for a body-racking cough that had lasted for months, and how I was given no medical tests. I was just told to lose weight and get over-the-counter cough medicine. And she didn't believe me, but this was just an extremely common thing from my experience as a fat person than obese person. People who are not fat and have never been fat do not understand that doctors will diagnose any symptom as just a side effect of being fat. And that's why you should never, ever trust any statistic that implies fatness increases death rates of any ailment without digging deeper and questioning it. Often it is not anyone's weight that kills or disables them, but rather their doctor's reaction to their weight. Fat phobia literally costs fat people their lives and livelihoods. Okay. So here's the thing. There's so much to unpack here. So I guess we're gonna cover the second half first, and then I'll go back to their cough story. So oftentimes for a lot of symptoms, you being fat is a direct contributor to your ailment. This is especially true with joints and high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes. Fat does... I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the precise mechanisms in which fat affects these things, but I know that the higher weight you are, the more likelihood you are to have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, and joint problems. Now, the joint problems one is easy because of the amount of weight on your joints. Your joints have kind of their own weight limit. Bone is not steel. It is not an unbreakable material. Bone can wear down. Cartilage even more so, which is what's going to create that sore grinding in your knees and ankles and hips. So that's kind of where that is. Now, that's not to say that there hasn't been some stuff overlooked because doctors assume that the whole issue is their weight. Sometimes tests really should still be done to, if nothing else, even if fat is a contributing factor, if there is another contributing factor, at least you can address that and then also have them hopefully address their weight loss. Oftentimes, though, for things, especially like joint issues, it's 100% your weight and you need to just work on that. Now, back to your cough. I don't believe for a second that they didn't run tests. I think they just weren't the tests that you wanted for whatever reason. Because I've had bronchitis and pneumonia. And primarily what the doctors just do is just listen to your chest. And I highly doubt that the doctor did not listen to her chest. They don't always do follow-up tests as well. Like, this doctor was listening to my chest and he thought I was making sounds while I was breathing in. And he was actually getting frustrated with me because he thought I was, like, making sort of sounds when I was breathing in, and I wasn't. And finally, he stopped listening to my chest and just listened to me breathe in for a moment. And he's like, "Oh shit, no, you have pneumonia. You need to get on an antibiotic ASAP." Normally, what they would do is have a X-ray to confirm it, but the X-ray wasn't available, and he said it was severe. Now, if you did not have that, like, wheezing sound in your chest, then you probably don't have pneumonia. Bronchitis is a viral infection and will just kind of clear up on its own. There's no medicine that they can particularly give you. If it wasn't one of those two things, then chances are it is likely a stress on your lungs. Like, it's kind of like with smokers. I have a couple of relatives that are heavy smokers, and when they're talking, they have to keep talking like this, and like with deep breaths and like this very labored sounding breathing, and they have really bad coughs as well. Now, if your lungs are under that level of stress because of your weight, chances are you sound like that too, and your cough is likely caused from the over taxation of your lungs, and therefore losing weight is the answer. I don't think that they didn't do any medical tests. I think they just did very preliminary medical tests, like listening to your chest. And because you can hear, most often you can hear issues with the lungs, and they didn't hear those issues, and they were able to kind of determine that it most likely is that you need to lose weight. And I'm curious to know what she means by body racking cough, because I've had those. I've had coughs so severe that I've thrown up from coughing. So I'm very curious, like, does your cough keep you up at night? Like, have you lost sleep from your cough? Because that's happened to me. Have you, like, actually done you say racking, the body racking. Have you actually done those, like, convulsing um, movements because your stomach involuntarily is pushing so hard into your abdomen because you are coughing so hard? Like, I don't know, that I've just noticed that the Fatlogic people tend to have this overdramatic language used for any medical issue, and I would like to know what specifically you experienced, because you call it a body racking cough. What's your definition of that experience? I would just like to know. It seems so simple. More people are large to 3x than extra small to large. Feels like they're losing money on smaller sizes. So, do they hate profit or just fat people? I definitely think it's the latter. It just doesn't make any logical or financial sense, to be honest. No, that's not how that works. So, the thing is that it's interesting because they talk out of both sides of their mouth. On the one hand, they say that you should never take, like, extra 3x large sizes from Goodwill because you're taking it from poor fat people, and because plus size clothing is expensive and hard to find, and a lot of people can't afford to dress themselves and all that. But then in another way, you're like, well, by not providing those, they're losing profit, and yet you just said that fat people can't afford their clothes. So which is it? Number one. Number two, a lot of the extra small, and medium and large sizes, small, medium, large, even extra small, actually, there's plenty of people that actually fit that realm, and because they're probably not spending so much money on fast food and junk, they can easily buy more clothes. But also, a lot of teenagers and younger people will fit into these smaller sizes, and they have more disposable income available to them because they are not yet, a lot of them are still living with family, and they have the ability to just spend money on those clothes, as to where a lot of these Fatlogic people tend to seem like they seem like they're adults with, like, actual jobs. And even, like, the morbidly obese teenagers, at least the ones that I've seen, are more likely to spend their extra money on snack foods. And I don't mean to speak derogatively of children. That's not my point. My point is just that for companies, there is a target for their target demographic is going to be the people with the most disposable income, which is typically ages 15 to 24. Because a lot of those people are living with their parents, and while they may have some bills, they are more likely to spend money on trendy clothing. There's plenty of financial and logical sense that goes behind this. Plus, it's really cheap to make these sizes, especially extra small and small, because it uses just less fabric. And it's everyone's kind of desire. Even people that can't necessarily fit into those clothes will buy, like, an inspiration piece for their weight loss. And so there's a variety of reasons why someone would buy from this size. But even I will often fit into a large. There's plenty, well, I guess they go large to 3x, but still, my point still stands. There's plenty of reason, and there's plenty of people that fit into these small sizes, particularly extra small and small, that probably have a bit more money to spend because they are not spending as much money on food. Something that really irritates me is when stores charge more for plus-size clothing under the guise that they are using more fabric. Well, you're also using more fabric for a size XL versus a size small. But those are the same price. So your reasoning is BS. Just another extra price we pay for daring to be fat. Most of the time I refuse to shop at stores that do this, but sometimes it can't be avoided. So I think something that's worth noting is that there's the way patterns work is that there's usually breathing room within a half a yard because you're not like doubling the size every time you go up. So while yes, extra large is significantly bigger than a small, yardage wise for fabric, you can probably still work within maybe a half yard for sizes small to extra large. Once you get to the bigger sizes, more and more fabric has to be added outside of that initial yardage that's designated for the garment. So that's most likely where that extra cost comes from. Plus, like, I'm only speaking in terms of a 2X. If you're going into 3X, 4X, 5X, 6X, that requires substantially more fabric. It just does. You can fit probably 2 size smalls in a 3, 4X. You can't fit 2 size smalls in an extra large most of the time. So, get over yourself, stop victimizing yourself, and lose some fucking weight. Alright, this is a bit of a behemoth, but I feel the need to cover it. Fun statistical fact. Cows are about 300 times more likely to kill you than coyotes. Minor side note to this statistical fact. If it was common for people to keep several hundred coyotes on their property and routinely chase them into a corral and handle them, this statistic would be different. This is an example of conditional probability, which is a concept that many struggle with, and for that reason, facts can be used to distort correlations without context. She's about to go on to not go into conditional probability, so we'll be coming back to this in a moment. This happens a lot in healthcare when it comes to people in larger bodies. Fat is stigmatized as being a risk to one's health without considering the societal conditions and systemic fat oppression that affects us in every aspect of our lives. It is true that many diseases are more commonly found in heavier people. However, that doesn't mean that the weight itself causes disease. Blaming fatness for heart disease is similar to blaming yellow teeth for lung cancer, rather than considering that smoking may play a role in both. And telling people they need to lose weight is a lot like telling someone with a cold to stop sneezing so much. It may not be possible and won't make the cold go away. Ah, okay. So much to go over. One, this bit with saying that fat is the reason, and the yellow teeth, lung cancer versus smoking thing. This is not conditional probability. This is correlation doesn't equal causation. They're different concepts. So even you're like, which is a concept that many struggle with, you even struggle with it well, because this over here is not conditional probability. This is called a lurking variable. That it's correlation doesn't equal causation because there is a lurking variable that isn't being considered. For example, the example that's given of lung cancer, blaming yellow teeth for lung cancer, the lurking variable in that would be smoking. Something that's worth looking at, though, is that you're like, blaming fatness for heart disease is similar to blaming yellow teeth. No, it's not, because fatness and obesity is basically smoking. It's an unhealthy behavior that is the cause. A more accurate comparison would be, it's like blaming chubby fingers for heart disease, which people, just because you have chubby fingers doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to get heart disease. The lurking variable, though, would be the massive obesity that causes those chubby fingers. So it's not like having a cold, because a cold is something that is outside of your control. It is a virus that has infected your body, and that your body, without any conscious effort on your part, is trying to fight it off, and that results in stuffy noses, fevers, and other mechanisms that your body is trying to do to fight off the virus. Smoking and obesity, which is largely caused by a combination of inactivity and overeating, is behavior-based. So there are two different things. Fat is 100% controllable. Well, okay, maybe I shouldn't say 100% controllable, because there are, depending on your mobility and stuff, that but it's largely controllable. It is far more behavior based than it is an involuntary bodily mechanism. So this, I just found it interesting. Statistics was one of my favorite classes in college, and this is not does not equate to this. It just doesn't. This is a lurking variable concept, and I love when they act condescending and they still get it wrong. So this has gone on longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to end it here. But I do want to talk a little bit. Quick weight loss update. I lost another pound. I'm out of the 190s finally, but it looks like I probably plateaued last week. And I'm just going to keep working on making sure I log all of my stuff. And if this continues for another week where I plateau again, I might look into cutting my calories a little bit more. For the channel, I have a lot of ideas that I'm going to do. So to gear up for, several people had expressed interest in the Hayes Summer Reading Group. So I would really like to do that. And what I'm going to do is I have a bunch of books, and I'm thinking I'm going to read through the intros and make videos for each of the intros for each of the books that I have. And then once I get through all of them, they're all going to go in a playlist, and I'm going to put a poll up. Hopefully I'll have a community tab open by then, and let everyone vote. But some other ideas that I have for this channel that I would love to hear any perspectives on. So let's see. We already had the TikTok tag, which I like going through. Our weekly Fatlogic videos. TikTok Spotlight, which is when I'm looking at an individual creator. We've done Shit Marissa Says and Hannah Talks Bodies. I'm also looking to do William Hornby here pretty soon. We have the Hayes Reading Club that I'm hoping to do this summer. Some non-Fatlogic type stuff would be Heathen Reads Religious Texts. I grew up in a very non-religious household, and I'm not very familiar with religious texts, and I would like to read them. The goal would not be to be disrespectful, but simply my interpretation as someone that did not grow up in hearing or learning about this formally through my church or the mosque or the temple or anything like that, and just kind of my perspective as a person outside of the sphere reading these texts. Something else that I've thought about doing is something called Internet Librarian, because I have a shit ton of links. I collect informative links, and it would only be like once a month, but something that I think might be fun, and you might find some really cool websites. In the meantime, I've thought about doing reactions to Secret Eaters, which someone recommended. I really need to keep a list of who recommends what. Also, reactions to My 600-Pound Life was something that I was considering doing. Am I the Asshole videos and r/relationships was also some considerations. If any of this sounded interesting to you, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to kind of get a feel for what my audience wants. And chances are more will be added to this list as I go. And all of these might get like a preliminary video just to kind of test the waters in the future. A lot of these probably won't be visited until the summer, though. So I'm going to end it here. This has gone on way, way too long. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for 120 subscribers. I am just overjoyed with the success of this channel so far. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.